This is our house. It's not about the record. It's not about who we play. It's about the Tennessee Titans. Let's get it. Let's go, baby. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Hey.
And welcome Kevin Mawae to Unscripted. I can't believe we get to spend time together like this.
It's been a while, man.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
You know, this is an Unscripted of first, many firsts.
Yeah.
I've never interviewed or talked to anybody who played college football. Okay, I've never talked to anyone who's Hawaiian. Okay,
That's true.
I've never had anyone who played in the NFL.
Yeah.
I've never talked to anyone from Leesville. So Mark Cleary has not made the cut. Okay, I've never talked to anyone who's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Come on, Hall of Fame, and then a high school football coach now.
Yeah.
And so it's
Check off a lot of boxes.
I checked off a lot of boxes now, so a lot of people won't be on now.
Yeah.
And we'll get to have these conversations. Out of this it's been my heart to kind of be barbershop, locker room, conversation with people.
Got a barber chair in the
Well, let's
office.
go. We'll move over there to of my friends and people that I admire and people that I respect. And you're one of those. You're one of my closest friends. We've been friends for about 30.
Close to
30 years.
Well, I've been married 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah, so right at it.
Met you. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of who you've become. I'm proud of the husband, the dad, the leader, your character, your influence. You've used your influence the right way. I've seen that throughout all these years. And so it's a big honor for me to get there. And plus, I got to see a football game last night. Which was, there's nothing like high school football.
There's not. I tell people all the time, if I had to redo my whole life over again, I'd go back to high school. I'd go back to Leesville. And matter of fact, I got in the office this morning.
Wampus Cats.
And I watched the Wampus Cats highlights on my home film. Oh, absolutely. Yes.
God, that's amazing. And then, you know, it's high school football, and then we're in the middle of college football.
Yep.
So we're right there, kicking off. I wore this in honor of our
It's going to be by LSU. Everybody got to know. Fortunately for us here at campus, we have one of our deans of students. She's an LSU alum as well, so I get to see her. And our school's colors are somewhat purple and gold.
So it's all roads lead back to Baton Rouge.
No doubt about it, 100%.
But tell me a little bit about your background growing up, getting into football, your family.
Yeah.
Because I tell your story, but you tell your story better. And just give a quick little, here's my background.
My background is I'm the second of 4 boys to a military sergeant. My dad was in the Army for 23 years. And one brother was born in Europe. I was born in Georgia. 2 brothers born in Kansas. And then, my dad ended up with orders in Germany. And when I was 8 years old,
That's right.
I moved there when I was 7. Started playing football in Germany when I was 8. And I just knew I wanted to be an NFL football player, and I told my mom that. And my whole life's journey, up until the point I actually got drafted, was to play in the NFL. But a very competitive household. If we weren't playing football, it was basketball season, baseball.
With brothers.
And Mom,
your brothers are dogs.
It was rough. We broke a bunch of furniture in the house. A lot of my mom's stuff was still glued together. Yeah. It was a typical all-boy household with being ran by a military sergeant as your dad and a disciplinarian mom who didn't play around.
When you were in your junior, senior year, did you think I want to go to LSU, or were you thinking somewhere else?
No, having not grown up in the South and starting watching college football when I was in Germany, you always saw the big rivalries at Michigan, USC, Penn State, Alabama game.
Yeah.
And to be quite honest with you, I tell people reluctantly that I was an Alabama fan just because Bear Bryant, the mystique about Alabama. And then I ended up in Louisiana played at Leesville High School, where one of my teammates ended up going to LSU, and then three of them ended up there before my senior year. Eddie Fuller, from Leesville. Eddie Fuller, Raymond Smoot, and then Vincent Fuller, Eddie's younger brother. They were all older than I was, and I became a fan watching the game. And it was there in time, the heyday. They won 2 SEC titles at the time. And I was in the stadium for the LSU's Earthquake game, for those who know that game against Auburn. And I knew that environment, everything about it was something I wanted to be a part of. And it was close enough to home to where family could still, my parents could still be at the games, but far enough away where I could have my own independent life. And but I knew when I was in high school that that's what my goal was. And I knew by the time I was at the end of my junior year, I was gonna have an opportunity. Got my first offer at the end of my junior year. Mike Archer from LSU offered me.
That's right.
I had multiple other offers, a couple of SEC schools and all the in-state schools. As my senior year started, going into my senior season, by the time the midseason got there, I knew I was going to go to LSU. Yeah, and I was, recruiting was done.
Yeah. You know, you love your Polynesian roots.
Yeah.
You got the I mean, come on, you're working it right here. You got the tribe, working it all up. And you got that good skin. So I'm sitting here looking at you, and you know what I realized? You've not aged any.
Except
you look
the
the exact same as when I met you.
I don't think so.
Now you've aged well.
Well, I appreciate it.
But you know, a lot of your Hawaiian, your Polynesian football players end up on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that. We've seen that. I've been to Hawaii with you during the Pro Bowls.
Yep.
During the NFLPA route meeting, met some of your family. You know, and it's like a lot of them end up on that West Coast.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Polynesian culture.
Well, the biggest thing about Polynesian culture, and what I'm trying to instill with my kids here, is the term ohana, which means, everybody thinks the Moana movie is like, ohana means family, and family is us or whatever. But in my culture, the Hawaiian culture, ohana goes great. It's far greater than that. It's more about respect, honor. It's about people who you're connected to. And it's not just your blood family. It might be like you will be an ohana to me because you and I have something close together. And then whoever belongs to you, by virtue of you and I being so close, then whoever you bring into your kids, McCall, Dylan, Bella, Dylan, they become a part of my family as well. And so that's the one thing my mom and dad always instilled us. If this whole world falls apart, and everybody dies around you.
Wow.
The only people you have left is your family.
Yeah.
And it was always that. It was always that way.
Yeah.
And with 4 brothers that fight all the time, it was like it doesn't matter what happened, whether you're friends or whatever. You will always be brothers. Yeah. And that's kind of the whole spirit of family that the Hawaiian culture teaches. And we teach a word, kupuna, means our elders, and the elder kupuna that comes before us. And we are to take on the legacy that they give us and pass that on to the next generations. And so there's a responsibility there that is inherent in my culture, but is taken very seriously in the Hawaiian culture. And there's other aspects to the Hawaiian culture that talks about the spirits of your ancestors and stuff like that. But the reality of it is like you have to understand where you came from, how you got to where you came from, and what is your responsibility now, which the word is kuleana. What is your kuleana to the next generation?
Right.
What is your responsibility?
It's all legacy.
And it is all about the legacy. And that's what we're trying to, for me as a coach, trying to teach my kids, it's not about winning one season. It's about leaving a legacy. When you come back 20 years from now, they remember what you did to build this program up. And so that's just something mom and dad have always instilled in me and instilled in my family. I'm still very close to my brothers. I talk to both of them every week for a game. My cousins, we all stay in touch. It's not like, I got a cousin that's 3,000 miles away. We don't talk to each other. We're all in a group chat. And so it's something that's just innate in our Hawaiian culture.
As long as I've known you, I've seen all that. Loyal, committed. We've had seasons where we were close in proximity. I've never not felt close to you, even though proximity may not be there. I've always considered you, and I think you feel the same way, dear friends, confident friends, transparent friendship, which people need so much today. I know spiritually speaking, so your spiritual journey, some things happened to you when you were right out of college into the NFL. Those were some catalytic moments for you to turn to Christ. And I got to have a front row seat on that. But give a little window into, not brought up in church, not brought up
No.
as a Christian, not brought up really understanding that or being
Yeah.
exposed to that, like you are now,
Yeah.
or like your kids have been. Give me a little bit of that, and then give
Yeah.
me some of those moments that led you into me praying for you to receive Christ.
It was always about family for us. So
Yeah.
that was one thing that we
Yeah.
were always taught. Mom and Dad have been married almost
Sure.
53 years now together,
Wow.
and they've been a prime example of what it is to love one another.
That's great.
And to work through issues and all that kind of stuff. But it never was made to go to church once or twice in high school. It was never my thing. Went to college, lived the stereotypical student athlete
Sure.
life. And I never really
But probably
gave
a little
thought.
more since your brothers and all that.
Probably-
There's some stories
there's-
about the Mawae
There's some
brothers.
stories we won't tell.
Okay, just want to clarify that.
Yeah,
there,
they're
unscripted.
My BC days were things that I don't, we don't share a lot of them about,
Yeah.
just because you can move on. They're memories, and some
Yeah.
of them are great, and some of them are not so.
Yeah.
You think, man, that was just stupid. I was living an idiotic life back then.
Yeah, amen.
But
Me too.
met my wife in college,
Yeah.
and we dated. You married us. And at the time, I wasn't a believer, and I wanted no desire, wanted no part of
Yeah.
it.
You told me that in our counseling session.
In our 30-minute pre-count mirror
Yeah,
counseling. Yeah, you want us to read Skype? Nope.
Yeah.
And if that's a problem, I'll go find another pastor to marry us. That's what happens when
And you were huge, so I said,
when
yes,
you're
sir.
when you're a poor broke pastor that's just now starting a church.
Let's go.
It's so anyway. So I get drafted, and I make all rookie my first year. Second year, I'm starting. I'm doing really well. And at the end of that second year, I had a tragic accident in my life.
Yeah.
My brother was killed in a car accident, and that shook the foundation of who I was.
Yep.
And then a month later, we find out my wife Tracy's pregnant with our first child.
That's right, Kirk.
And so now anybody dealing with a tragic death and then a glorious moment of finding out you're going to be a
Wow.
dad in 9 months.
Never thought about those two
It throws
together.
that pot, and it's like there's so many emotions that go into it, and trying to understand who I was and all of that, and what my purpose in life was supposed
Yeah.
to be through that. It just led me to trying to find an answer.
Yeah.
And I always knew as a child growing up that there was a God. And I even had this from the time I was a sophomore until I got saved. I had this one prayer, and it was something I memorized for myself. I wrote it down myself, and I memorized it. It's the
Wow.
same prayer I prayed every Friday night, every Saturday before kickoff, every Sunday before kickoff. I would pray this prayer. I couldn't say it now, but I always knew, but I didn't
Something
know.
was happening.
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
then,
that's cool.
when the thought that my brother passing, I needed more answers.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where to turn.
Yeah.
I knew that my wife had belonged and she had been heavily involved in the church in high
Her
school.
and Lynn had done youth group
Yeah.
together.
And I would see her Bible when we were dating
Yeah.
and when we were married, and it had notes all over it. I'm like, and she wouldn't let me, it was hers. She wouldn't let me, she didn't want me
Yeah.
reading it, her personal notes. And so finally, I'm like, through this process, I'm like, I need some answers. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to go, but let me just, God, if you're really God,
Yeah.
I'll open my Bible and start reading it.
Yep.
And that's what I did. So I was gifted a Bible at the Senior Bowl that used to be played, at the Blue Gray All-Star game. It used to be played in Montgomery, Alabama. And I didn't know where to start. I'm like, old and new. I'd be like, again, I've never opened a Bible up in my life. And I'm like, there's Old Testament, New Testament. I'm like, the new's got to be better than the old, which it turns out it really is. So I started the New Testament, and I read the book of John,
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And then what started happening to me was this revelation of this guy named Jesus. And
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. It's all good.
And
I've seen you cry
I
before.
know, everybody has. And the more I read,
Yeah.
the more I wanted.
Yeah. That's the truth.
Next thing you know, I read the entire New Testament.
Wow.
Within probably,
I don't know if I knew that.
I would say probably within a month, maybe
Yeah.
2 months' time,
You
I
just
read the
devoured
entire
it.
New Testament. And I took notes on everything. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
every chapter, every book I read in the Bible. So then I got to Revelations, which that kind of like, well,
Ooh.
that was a little tough. And with somebody with no spiritual background, understanding those words, that was kind of strong. But what it led me to do is like the more I sought, the more answers I got, and the more answers I got, the more I wanted. And I read
that's so good.
And so I kept digging in. And so then I'm like, well, how did this whole thing start?
Yeah.
And so I went back to Genesis.
Oh, you went to the old.
And I read, so within a 6-month time period, I read the entire Bible.
God, I didn't know
and
that.
I took notes through the whole thing. And so this
Is that third season of NFL?
that was going into my third year.
season.
I was in my third year, and I was working through all this. And my wife being pregnant, she told me, she goes, I want our kids growing up in the church. I had no clue what that meant.
Yeah, what that meant.
And so I'm like, all right, whatever. And so because I was going through this walk, my faith walk and my journey, there was teammates of mine that would be encouraging and say, hey, why don't you come to Bible study?
Yep.
And then eventually we started hosting Bible study at my house, and I wasn't even a believer yet. and that's kind of what happened. And so that started kind of around July of 2005.
That's when it was.
Yeah, 95.
Yeah.
So John was killed in 96. So that summer, 1995.
Had to be, because we were like 3 or 4 years. We had just gotten that other building.
So it was 95. So I worked through the 95 season.
Yep.
Or 96 season. And then the 97 season was when I was going through this transformation. Or 96 season, I was going through this transformation. And then, and so I remember our son was born. We were hosting Bible study at our house. We did a group study, a couple study with our team. And I would just ask questions, and I would just be open to the answers. And we had a dear couple, Barb and Chuck Snyder. Incompatibility is the Grounds of Great Marriage is the book that they wrote.
That's right.
And so they just mentored us, and we were surrounded by other like-minded couples. And I remember Tracy had went back to Baton Rouge for the summer. I was finishing up off-season workouts, and I was in Bible study, and I asked a couple of questions. And Barb asked me, she goes, have you accepted Christ as your Savior yet? I said, no, but I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
And then fast forward 2 months later, I'm sitting at Healing Place Church, which was Trinity Christian Center at the time. And we're at my mom and dad's house prior to us getting there, and I'm sitting in the pool with Tracy and just asking her all these faith-based questions.
You had a bunch of them.
Because I had a whole bunch of them.
I remember.
Because I knew she grew up in the church.
Yeah.
And so I would ask her questions about the Bible. She said, well, this is what it really means. And this is what it really means. And this is what it's talking about. And then finally she just like, Kevin, I can't answer. I don't know. I can't answer. You need to talk to somebody who does know. And then she said, remember that guy Dino who married us 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He goes, well, his church has gotten bigger or whatever. So let's go to his church when we go to Baton Rouge. And literally that next Sunday, we were sitting in church for the first time. Yeah. Her and I, as a married couple, sitting in church for the very first time. And I remember it like it was yesterday, and you might not, and for you, probably you wouldn't even know that this is how it happened. But the stage used to be in the corner of the old church. And if you were standing on stage, I would have been off to your right in the back row. Yeah. And you're preaching this message, and this is how I perceived it. Yeah. It's like you're preaching, you look, and you scan, when you're speaking in public, now you kind of scan the crowd. And I felt like we locked eyes, and you looked at me, and it's kind of like you hesitated. I think we did. You hesitated in your message. much bigger than most people at Healing Place Church. Yeah. Locations. And there was a hesitation in your message, and then you just kind of went on with it. Yeah. So then afterwards, Tracy and I came, and we came up, met, we talked or whatever. You asked how I was doing or whatever, and I said, Dino, hey, it's like I got some questions. I'd love to get with you. And it didn't work out that week. We never got together. And then the next week, we're sitting in the same seat in the same section of church, and I perceived the same situation happen. You're preaching, it's like, in my mind, I'm thinking, like, God, dude made it back here 2 weeks in a row. It's like either I'm not that bad of a preacher, or this dude really needs something. And so we get back with you again, and that was. I think that week we that was a week, like, So that would have been June 24th. Yeah. 24th, 23rd, June 22nd, 1997. Yeah. And June the 22nd. That when we had that conversation in church.
I got saved on June the 21st.
Did you? There you go. And so, that was like that. I said, hey, I really need to speak to somebody. So let's connect. And I came in on the 24th, which was that Tuesday, and we met in the youth room upstairs at the old church. And he's like, well, we're just kind of catching up. And so I got some questions for you. And I broke out my notebook. Yeah. And I went down.
It's an intimidating notebook.
I went down note by note, and you answered every question in a biblical, theological sense. And at the very end, my last question was, well, why did God take my brother?
I remember that question. Yeah. That was a big one. Yeah, that was a big question. Yeah.
And I think, when people have a tragedy in their life or they lose somebody,
Yeah.
everybody wants to know the why. They want to know the purpose behind it. And for me, it just didn't make sense in the spiritual world because my brother turned his life around.
Yeah.
He was going to church himself.
That's right.
It was 6 weeks away from being married.
Yeah.
And his whole life was turning around.
Sure.
And I was seeing that. And the last thing he told me the night before his accident was, hey, he goes, I want to talk to you. I got something to share with you. And I'm not saying he was about to share the gospel with me because he was not that.
He was
But he was doing some issues in his life and how we kind of butted heads the year leading up to his death. And I just know something that was happening in his life had turned him around. And that's kind of what happened. So I asked you that question. And you said, Kevin, I don't have an answer for that question. He goes, what I do know is that you don't lack knowledge in who Jesus is. You lack faith in what he's capable of doing in your life.
Yeah. And
that was exactly what you said. And I just broke down and just started crying.
remember.
And then you asked me, would you like to receive Christ as your Savior? And I said, yes. and I remember like yesterday, I had to drive back out to Central. It was like 20 miles away.
Yeah.
And all I could think is my whole life is different. I knew it.
He was saved. Brother was saved. Yeah. Yeah. I knew it. That day.
I knew it. I was just something was different.
Yeah.
I walked in the house. Now, my son now is almost a year old. No, not even. He's about 6. I think that would have been June. So March, April, May, June. He was like 4 months old. Unbeknownst to me, Tracy was going back through her faith journey at the same time, but she was seeing what was happening in my life.
For God.
And I walked in the room. She was like, how'd it go? I said, I got saved today.
Was she like, what?
She looked like this.
Yeah.
She said, oh my God, you of all people?
Yeah, you of all people.
No, but
I was at that wedding.
Yeah, she said, she told me, she goes, I didn't tell you this, but I recommitted my life a few months back.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to come to this conclusion yourself. And that's what happened. And man, so now it's been 1997. We're sitting in 2023. What was that, 26 years now?
Gosh.
And that's about right because John's passing was 27 years ago. And my life's never been the same.
The reason why I love this, if you're a pastor or a leader or a youth pastor, a believer, somebody who wants to help other people, the anatomy of that journey, there are so many things in there about how to be a witness, how to be a testimony, how to remember the journey that a lost person is on. I was lost and did not go to church, did not know Christ. I was not a church-going person. But how my sister treated me, how a friend in high school prayed for me. When I came to that point, there was a conversation about the gospel, how that person treated me in that conversation, how I did not say yes that day, but later on through a gospel paper and through a prayer that someone told me, I came to Christ. I was saved on the night, June the 21st, 1982, not in a church. There's so many things about that I need to constantly be remembered about in my witness and in my care for people that are not yet Christians. Because sometimes we can jump to wrong conclusions. We don't like the timing of God. We want to control it. We want to dictate how somebody gets saved. It only happens under these parameters, these ways. And you and I both have seen so many people that we've impacted. I mean, you've led people to the Lord. You've seen people's life turn around. Players, coaches, teammates, students. You've seen it. And there comes a point where you just have to trust God. And it doesn't mean that we are silent. It doesn't mean that we don't witness. We don't tell people to repent. We don't preach the gospel. But God loves the lost people more than we do. 100%.
And I remember being a young player in the NFL, being asked to come to Bible study and stuff. And there was...
And what were you like?
I was F that.
Yeah.
I don't need that. And that was literally the conversation I had. I was that guy. But I would see guys that were Christian leaders on our team that were fighting to be the Christian leader on the team. I'm like, why would I want to be a part of that?
Things don't change much, Kev. It's
No,
his pastor's fighting to be the best.
I'm like, why would I want to be a part of this? You guys can't figure out just how to share the gospel together, let alone lead the team in a spiritual way. So I see you two Christian guys fighting in the locker room, arguing, not fighting, but
arguing, debating
about who's doing Bible study, what we should be talking about, and where it should be, and what time, and who's going to lead the group. Who's going to lead the group? I said, why would I want to be a part of that? Why would I want to be a part of a group of guys that call themselves Christians that act like that? Because, in my understanding, we're supposed to love one another, have humility about it, be strong in your faith or whatever. But why would you ever argue with another Christian about who wants to lead? How about you just be humble about it and be like, you know what? I'll back you up, whatever you want. I got your back.
I got you.
I'll be your armor bearer for you. But there's even now, I'm talking 27 years later, and you got church pastors in the pulpit talking about this pastor across the street. I'm like, here's the only thing that matters. Jesus died on the cross for my sins. Everybody who believes in him will have eternal life, and that's it. That's the only two things that really matter. But the way they serve the community, they're stepping on our toes because that's our block. That's my corner of the street. I don't know why they're on this corner of the street. Why would Church of Highlands decide to build another church here when we got 25 other churches? Because they see a need that needs to be filled. Why would you care? Maybe you're not filling the need that somebody needs, but another church does. And why don't you just partner with them? Now I'm speaking out of a guy who's been around the block a little bit now and whose faith has grown. But that was my mentality as a young person that didn't know the Lord. But thankfully, God's grace and the Holy Spirit worked in me to show me what true grace and true love and true understanding really is, to be like, it's never about you. This world is never about the one person, about yourself. It's always about how you treat other people, how you respect them, how you love them, unashamed love, and unattached love. No strings attached. I want to give this to you because I love you. Because I see a need, I want to fill a need. Not what can I get out of this. And that's just the way since I've become a believer and really understood what my responsibility was because of who I am as a football player and the platform I've been given. And not even that, just because who we're supposed to be as Christians, I'm like, you know what? It's not mine. I can't take it with me. But I do know this: how I treat people is always going to come back to me one way or another. And if I love people and I treat them like they should be loved, and I honor the elders and I honor people and respect people around me, then that's good enough for me.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Unscripted. We just want to take a brief moment to say thank you to the Wesleyan Investment Foundation for making this episode possible. For over 80 years, they have been helping churches and church planters with their borrowing and investing needs. If you're dreaming about a new project for your ministry or how to invest the resources you already have, we think Wesleyan Investment Foundation can help you. Check out this brief video to learn more about what they do.
So I started off in youth ministry, and I was a worship leader, and I did that for 4 or 5 years. And then my wife and I just really felt like the Lord was calling us to start the church, which was a huge step for us. We felt like the Lord was calling us to Columbus, Ohio. And so we moved our family with just this dream, this desire to see something new in a city like Columbus begin. We had a few friends with us and our family, and the Lord just started really to open incredible doors. We built a team up of about 40 people, partnered with an incredible organization called ARC Churches, and really were trained by them and learned what was possible. And we opened our doors on April 3rd, 2011. We saw 430 people walk through the doors that very first Sunday. 43 people were saved on day one. And literally ever since that first day, our church has grown and grown. We're now celebrating more than 33,000 people who've filled out a Connect card and said, I am making a first-time decision to follow Jesus. It has just been absolutely mind-blowing what God has done through Rock City Church. We launched our church in a movie theater. Not many churches at the time in 2011 were doing that, in our city at least. 2 years in, we were in 2 different movie theaters in town. Within 6 months of launching our second location, we were in 3 locations, but they were all mobile. We didn't have permanent roots. About 5 years into our church, and we really started to sense that we needed to put down deep, permanent roots. And so for us, that meant either looking for something to purchase and renovate, or buying land and building something from the ground up. The challenge for us, even though we were a growing church, we had a couple thousand people at the time, we just didn't have enough history for a traditional lender to feel comfortable backing our church in the way that we needed a lender to back us. And so it was actually a phone call that I made. I reached out to a pastor friend of mine in another city. And I asked him, I said, tell me your story. How did you manage to move from being a mobile church to building the many campuses that I've watched you over the years build? And he said, WIF. I made a call to WIF. We sent over our financials. Then about a week's time, we were sitting face to face and talking with somebody. And the reason that we love this partnership is because we are engaging the same mission. So our mission statement at Rock City is, we exist to make heaven full. What I love about WIF is, that's your mission too. You might say it differently, but the kingdom-minded partnership, it matters to us. It's made all the difference. When we engaged WIF, we were able to build our very first broadcast campus. We also, at the same time that we were renovating another campus, a smaller campus in the heart of our city, and the Columbus Dream Center. So we were doing 3 projects at once, and WIF was really the wind in our sails to help us accomplish all 3. When we moved into our broadcast campus, January 2019, our church more than doubled in size. Day 1. It was incredible. That relationship between Rock City Church and WIF that started that day, it truly has made all the difference in the world for us.
You know, one thing I've always admired, loved, been thankful for is you've loved the church, you've stayed in your word. All those years in NFL, it's 17?
16.
16 years in chapel, doing your best to be in Bible studies, doing what you could to be a spiritual leader.
Yeah.
Always, always were connected to me as your pastor.
Yep.
Very generous, giving, financial giving, when you could, giving insight, wisdom. There were times I called you about leadership decisions,
Yep.
big decisions we were making that were at another level, but because of what you were learning as an NFL player rep, as president of NFL, all these different things, full of wisdom, love the church, still love the church to this day. Here at a good Christian school, love the local church, love, you're a Jensen Franklin fan. I mean, you guys love Jensen, love Church of the Highlands, and you've introduced me to a lot of your world. I've introduced you to a lot of my world pastors. And I've just always loved that about you, that you stayed simple in that aspect of you've loved the local church. And a lot of people that would have your opportunity success, they wouldn't do that.
No.
I mean, even with you being faithful in your tithe and offering, it's been amazing.
You know, for me, the last thing I held on to was the principle of tithe. And I remember I was sitting I remember like it was yesterday, sitting in the hot tub in Seattle, when the Seattle Seahawks complex at the time. There's about me and about 8 other guys in there. And most of them were the Christian guys on the team. And one of them in particular was Todd Peterson, who was our kicker, and he was one of the spiritual leaders on the team. And he had asked me about the principle of tithe. Have you been tithing? I'm like, man, I can't understand, how am I going to give 10% of my earnings to the church when I'm struggling to give X number of dollars to my family? Because in the NFL, a lot of people don't understand, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes with family members and stuff like that. And friends, people like, hey, can you help me out? They think you're gonna pick the check up for everything. And he shared with me the scripture in Nehemiah that talked about, God says, give a tithe of your first fruit, and see if I don't open up the doors of my storehouses and bless you more than you can ever imagine. And it's really the only time in the Bible that I've found where God says, I challenge you to give a tenth of your first fruit. And I did.
Big deal. Yeah,
and so I wrote a check that year. It was a $40-something check. And it's like, it was hard. It was hard to sign that check off. And 2 months later, I signed a new contract with the New York Jets, and they make me the highest paid center in the history of the NFL. And I say that because God honors those who honor him.
That's good.
And I didn't give to get.
No, not at all.
I give out of the freedom of my heart. And I've learned the principle, like, if God puts in my heart to give, I give it to whoever he tells me to give it to.
Yeah.
What they do with it, that's on them.
Yeah, I agree.
I said, I'm giving you this check. I'm giving you this money. I'm giving you this car. Whatever I'm giving you, I am giving you because I feel God is telling me to give it to you. What you do with it after it, that's on you. That's between you and God. But I know I honored my end of the bargain with God. And people have problems with that because I want to give a check to the church, but I want this to be a part of it. Oh, but I want to sit in the front row. Or but I want my name on the building. I don't care. It's like, what you do with it's up to you. That's if you waste it, if you burn it, if you lose it, if you gamble it away, that's between you and God.
Yeah. God will get you.
But God honored me for what I did.
Yeah, he did.
And he continued to do that.
Yeah.
And it became a blessing for my wife and I every time that we did give.
Yeah.
Because I'm working into the highest earning potential of my career as an NFL player. And we couldn't wait to see how much money we give at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And to sit there, and the great thing, we were always in connect with how we did it. And it was never like, I think this, I think that. It was like, this is the dollar amount we got to give away. Not that we want to, but we have to. Commanded by God, challenged by him to give 10% of whatever you made, of the gross, not the net. You want a net blessing or a gross blessing?
Yeah.
And so we would sit there. There's times I'm sitting on $600,000.
Yep.
And I'm like, all right, you go make your list. I'm gonna make my list, and we'll see how that.
The Lord does.
And it was always the same 8 to 10 ministries that God put on both of our hearts. And then, okay, now we know what we're gonna give to. Now you take X number of dollars, and you divvy it up between those 10 ministries.
Yeah.
And I'd take the same amount of money, we'll divvy it up, and then we'll see where we're at with it.
Yeah.
And not one time was it ever off. We were off maybe by some change here and there, but we just felt like God just put that in our heart to sow to the ministries. And we learned that by the challenge that Todd Peterson put on my heart.
Yeah.
And it just became who we were. And it just, now it's like I know sometimes it's really cool to write the check and send it to them.
Yeah.
But churches make it so easy, just automatic payment.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm making X number of dollars. This is my salary for the entire year. I'm going to break it up by 52 weeks, and this is what I'm tithing. And it just comes right out of it, and I don't have to worry about it. Not that I shouldn't, but at least, I mean, you guys, churches make it so there's a kiosk now. You know, like that, you know what I'm saying? But I just understand, like, people, they want to hold on to everything they got so tightly. And at the end of the day, you can't take it with you.
Well, if you think about it, Kevin, someone gave so that you could get it.
Yeah.
All those years ago, in 96, 97, somebody gave that Bible. Someone gave money to give you that gift as a Bible. Somebody was supporting that couple in Seattle. You know, all these different things that took place. Somebody was providing for that church service that you went to. And you think about all these things, and then I've always felt like because someone gave me the opportunity, that it's my mandate to then continue that on, to give somebody else the opportunity to receive Christ, to see healing in their life, restoration, hope for their situations. And so it's an act of worship, and it's an act of a mandate of the gospel continuing to spread.
Yeah.
And you've helped spread the gospel a lot, not only financially, but then also, I loved at the Hall of Fame, which was a big deal. Germany, Leesville, Baton Rouge, Seattle, New York, Tennessee, all this journey. You and your wife, because I watched Tracy go through that with you, and your children.
Yep.
And to be able to be there that night with you. I think John and Leslie were with us, and Dylan and I. And first words out of your mouth.
I am a born-again believer through the resurrection of the blood of Jesus Christ. I proudly and humbly recognize that without God's grace and his blessings, I would not be here tonight.
That platform, I don't know how many millions of people have seen that induction. It's a bunch.
Yeah.
And then for the platform, your bust, your image is in Canton.
Yeah.
And it'll be there till Jesus comes back. And to think about that, I mean, you got the shirt on, Hall of Fame, Canton, Ohio, and your accomplishments, that had to be an amazing moment.
It was. I tell my players this.
And you got the jacket.
And I got a pretty sweet jacket.
Yeah.
I got Air Force Ones to match too.
Yeah.
But I tell my players this, and I've always, the guys I play with, I never played for the fame.
No,
I wanted it early on, I did, but once I became a believer, I'm like, this is just a platform God's given me, and how I use it is going to be a reflection of my love for Him. And the thing is too, whether I was a believer or not, I just love the game. I just love playing ball, and that's all I wanted to do. My goal was never to be a Hall of Famer. I wanted to be the best that I was capable of being. And that's why I try to teach my kids. That's why I try to teach my players, the people that I know, so just be the best you can be. Don't try to be like somebody else. Don't try to be like Jensen Franklin. Don't try to be like Dino Rizzo. How about you be the best passer you can be?
Amen.
How can you just be the best player that you can be? Don't try to be, there's things you want to emulate and you want to learn from and stuff like that. But you just be you. And then let the best version of you shine for everybody else. Understanding that there's a bunch of people came before you and you've learned from them, you stand on their shoulders, and there'll be a bunch of people come after you.
Yeah.
And what they do because of what you've done becomes your legacy. And both on the field, in the classroom, as a coach, as a Hall of Famer, as a football player, when people start saying you remind me of Kevin Mawae, the way he played. That's a legacy. I set a legacy of the way I played.
Yeah.
Or, you remind me of what you're doing now reminds me of Pastor so-and-so and how he built this. That's great because I learned from that pastor, and his legacy was to me was to show me how to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's always about something bigger than yourself. And we're so caught up now, both like it's adults and kids, about me, about what it looks like for me and how that looks like for me. And it's never about me. It's about what are you doing for the next generation, the next group of kids, and the next season or whatever, the next game. The game of football taught me accountability. It taught me discipline, sacrifice, and selflessness. It developed in me grit, tenacity, and confidence. It challenged my faith. It grew my loyalty. It sealed my legacy. When I got elected, I started my speech early. I started writing my speech that February. I got elected that February at the Super Bowl. I started writing my speech the next week. And all I want to know is what is this about? And it's about the journey that I've been on.
Yeah.
And in a journey, nobody takes a journey by themselves. They take a journey with a group of people or a friend. And that's what it was about.
Financial guys, your coaches.
I went through all of those.
You did.
My team chaplains, you as my personal pastor, people that played significant roles in my life to help me get to what I wanted and where I came from. Understanding this, and this image, and I've spoken on, I've preached on this before, was I can either be on a platform or I can be on a pedestal. And my bust is on a pedestal.
Yeah.
But my life is a platform that spreads far and wide.
That's a good way to say it.
And it goes back to the story of Nebuchadnezzar, when they talked about he built the statue unto himself and how big he was. And what he didn't do there was spend the time on the foundation of that statue. It was made out of clay or whatever. And the higher he went, the heavier it got. And the pedestal fell apart. And for me, I just knew in my heart that my life is not supposed to be a pedestal. It's supposed to be a platform to reach out far and wide.
Have you been back to Canton and saw your
I've been back multiple times. So
you've walked in and saw it. What did that feel like?
The very first time was the day after the induction.
Okay, so it was already there.
It was in there the day after.
I didn't know that.
And I walked in, and it was the first time I ever, and there's video out on YouTube and stuff. The first time I ever saw my bust on the wall.
Wow.
And
because you saw those players.
I just started crying.
Of course you did. I would.
And then I've been back. I went a couple of times back. Yeah. I was recruiting when I was at Arizona State. I recruiting in that area and was able to go back.
Wow.
LSU just won the national title one year.
That's right.
And I hung beads on all the LSU Hall of Famers. I put LSU Mardi Gras beads on everybody. And then I was just back last month for the induction ceremony.
So you go back every year for every induction?
Last year was, possibly. You're invited to come back they want you to come back. Last year, this past induction season was the first time I was able to go back for the induction because of my coaching schedule and stuff like that. And it's just, for me, it's always an awe moment.
So do you have a jacket at your house?
I do, yeah.
And do that, and that's the only one there is?
It is.
Okay, and have you wore it in front of your players here at Lipscomb?
I have.
Okay, what was that moment like for you? Because you're coaching now at Lipscomb.
Yeah.
We're going to walk around the facility, talk a little bit about this season of your life.
Yeah.
But because, you know, just to give context,
Yeah.
coaching a great high school, national high school, what was it like when you put that jacket on? And how did you use that to teach them a principle?
Yeah, well, so I was officially introduced as the head coach on January 24th,
Yeah.
the day after my birthday this past year. And I didn't have anything on. Because it was not about me.
Sure.
It's about me being the head coach of the program.
Yeah.
But anytime I have an opportunity to have to be at something that is where I have to represent who I am, I always wear it. So the
It's
first time,
significant.
so first time I wore it on campus, and the athletic department had their Mustang Awards night, kind of like our school's version of the ESPY Awards.
Okay.
And it was the first time I ever wore it, and
Wow.
on campus. And I mean, it's like you go in the room and everybody's got dark coats on, or whatever. I come in with this yellow gold jacket, and
Gold.
and the thing is, you just wear it. You don't walk in and like puff it out, because I think everybody it's world recognized.
It is.
And you walk in and everybody's just like, they know what it's about. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to explain it. I just walk in and they know that I was one of the best to ever play the game. And so for my players to see that, they're like, okay, maybe it gives me a little bit of something with them. Like they understand, oh, this dude really knows football.
Part of the platform.
Yeah, it's part of, okay, he's a Hall of Fame player. What can he instill in us about being a player?
Yeah.
And so this is how I approach the game. This is my mentality. My love for the game, my respect for the game, my respect for my teammates. And we've had growing moments on this team where this team has been very successful.
Yeah.
They've won two state titles, 21-0 until we lost to IMG 3 weeks ago. And so that was hard for them. To lose a game, and then we go to Alabama, play #1 team in Alabama, lose to them.
Yeah.
They've never had to experience that before. It's like, okay, well, this is how you experience. This is how you handle this. Learn from the past, get better at what you didn't do right, and move on to the next one. Because the past is the past.
That's a good sermon
everything
for
you have
pastors
is
and
in
leaders.
front of you. Yeah, it's like
That's humanity.
There's no doubt about it. Stop dwelling on what you didn't do right. I mean, stop dwelling on what happened. Learn from it and move on.
Move on.
And just get to the next thing. It's like I learned it way back when you have a penalty or you have a bad play. Get to the next. It's like reading a book. Turn the page. You turn the page, get to the next book, and move on. Don't keep dwelling on it, because all that's going to do is going to hold you back. It's going to hold you back from your full potential. It's going to hold you back from the next player. You can't focus on what's ahead because you're so stopped up with what's behind you.
Yeah,
and that's one of the lessons.
Good word for everybody.
Yeah.
Every single person watching has to be able to turn the page.
Yep. And then
in their marriage,
everything,
children, finances, hurt, addiction,
yes.
all these things that we all struggle with. You've got to be able to move on by God's grace.
I've hurt my wife. I know we've all hurt people in our lives, and we ask for forgiveness, and we're contrite about it. I'm so sad that I hurt you. I'm sorry. I was wrong. God never called us to be perfect. Yeah. He called us to be forgiven through the eyes of a perfect God, by His perfect Son. And that's the hardest thing for me, especially when I'm with the NFL guys. Like, well, how can you do this and do this? I said, because I'm not perfect. And then I've been challenged. Well, how can you be a Christian when you play as hard as you do, or how play as dirty as you do? I was like, because you know what? I'm not perfect, but I serve a God who is. Yeah. And my perfection on the field is a reflection of, or the way I play on the field is a reflection of my love for Him. So if you have a problem with the way I play on the field, take it up with Him. Because as long as God's giving me confirmation that I'm doing it right, then I'm good. Yeah. But one of my faults is I dislike being disliked. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And everybody does.
Yeah, I do.
But for some people, don't care. Some people just don't care. You don't like me? No big deal. For me, it bothers me because I don't want people to think that I didn't treat them right. Yeah, I know. That what did I do to hurt you? What did I do
to make it right?
Yeah. How can I make this thing? You don't have to like me, but just understand. I just want to make sure I didn't do something to hurt you. Yeah. And so even now as a head coach, I'm getting letters from like anonymous people. You know. Yeah. Accusations.
Different players.
It's just like I don't know what I did to you, but if you would actually give me your real name, and we can go, I would love to sit down and have coffee with you. I'm not gonna be mad at you, but just tell me why.
That anonymous comment.
What have I done so hard that has offended you so much?
Yeah.
You know, and things like that. And then, so that's it. And then the other thing about the jacket is you get to teach them about life, how you carry yourself or whatever. So we have an event here called Helmet and Heels, and it's where the boys and the moms have dinner together. And the moms have to write a letter of affirmation to the boys. The boys write a letter of love and affirmation to their moms. And
no, that's a moment.
And it's an event for the moms and the sons. And so this is the first time my wife has an opportunity to be around my players' moms.
Right.
But my mom was in town.
Oh.
My mom was. I took my mom to our Moms and Sons Helmet and Heels to the event. I wore my gold jacket. And so it was kind of funny because all moms like looking, where's Miss Tracy at? And I'm like, oh no, this is not my wife. This is my mom. I had a couple kids give me a look like, Coach.
Okay.
Man, Coach. Like,
okay, Coach.
Yeah. And I was like, no, this is my mom. But I got to show my kids the respect of my mother that I have for my mom.
Yeah. Strong woman, man. Strong woman. I've been around your mama.
She played tackle football with me when I was little. And,
your mom, I've been around your mom.
And so for them to see me honor my mom in that way, it's like, oh, you know, like he's a big time football player, the cool jacket and everything. But what they didn't see the jacket. What they saw was Coach Mawae with his mom on his arm and treating her with the respect that they should treat their moms or their mom figure or whatever it is. Yeah. And then for my mom to sit there with some of those moms, it's like, oh yeah, so this is what I rule with iron fist, and I used to, I'd beat them up and whatever, you know. It's like, and
she wasn't real impressed with you, you know.
And
she kept you humble.
She did,
like your wife.
100%.
My wife too.
Yes, and it offers me, if it opens a door to where I get a foot in and share my heart,
your testimony,
my testimony or whatever. Exactly. That's what it is, and that's. There's 180 something living gold jackets out of 391 or whatever it is.
How many centers?
5.
You were one of 5.
One of 5.
I get goosebumps about that.
And the two earliest ones were like dual position players, whatever.
God has done so many things in your life that were unexpected. You never thought you'd get drafted by the Jets. Or, I'm sorry,
Seattle.
No, but when you moved to the Jets,
I
remember we were on the phone. It was Charger, and then all of a sudden you said, I remember you called me and said, "You're not going to believe it. I'm getting to be the highest paid center that's ever played football." And then all of a sudden, hey, president of the NFLPA.
Yeah, didn't want it.
I mean, we discussed.
You shared with me the story of Esther. You shared because I didn't want to do it, and you shared with me the story of Esther. Which I just read that again the other day, that maybe God has created you for such a time as this. Because at the time I just finished graduate school. I had been mentored through the process. I was a player rep for 8 years, 4 years, something like that, as vice president. And I had been a part of some of the things going on in the church from a financial standpoint. Yep. And you told me the night before, Kevin, he goes, maybe God has created you for such a time as this.
And that was a wild time.
Oh, it was stressful.
In those negotiating.
Yes.
You're in New York, Mike's in your face.
Yeah.
You're in rooms with lawyers and owners, and every time you turn around, I would see you in the USA Today. I'm in Baton Rouge, and I open the USA Today, and there's Kevin on the cover, out in front of New York, some office, some deal.
Yeah.
And it was one thing after another. Got to continue to play. I remember when you made the Pro Bowl. And it's like, you're not going to believe and I went with you. You took me with you, thank God.
Yeah.
Tracy let me go. And but I was sitting there thinking about, even this job here, what an opportunity.
Yeah.
God is, you stay humble, you stay faithful. Neither of us are perfect by large leaps, my Lord. I've had bad days and bad decisions. But it's like, the favor of God, the grace of God, the mercy of God. And even now, how old are you right now? Are you 55?
52.
52. God had you young, I had you older.
Yeah.
52, because Glenn's 55.
Yeah.
And it's just been opportunity of influence. And now this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
To be called, you've been called Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame, player, president, vice president, rep. Now you're called coach.
It's the coolest one I've ever had.
That's what I want to get to.
Yes.
What does it feel like? Because, that's big, Kevin. You're called
it is.
coach.
Of all the titles I've ever had,
Yeah.
the one that I like the most is coach.
Yeah. Because you've been out of the game how long? 15 years?
Yeah, I think 2009. Yeah, 14 years. Yeah.
And it's, I mean, when you think, I mean, husband,
Yeah.
dad,
Yep.
you know, one day I'll be granddad, all these things, you
Not
know.
for a while,
Yeah, but I'm
hopefully.
saying, but then coach.
Uncle,
At a program like
I love
this.
being called uncle. I love my
Uncle,
nephew called me uncle.
yeah.
I love that. But I mean, the first time anybody ever called me coach, I was like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
This is because.
You've done some assistant coaching, you've done some other coaching.
But to be the head
here,
coach and be called
head
coach. And this is something that is so true. And I think it was John Wooden, or I don't know, maybe Billy Graham or something. I think it was maybe Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Said.
Had similar ideas.
A lot. A coach will spend more time with one of his players in a given week, in a given year, than anybody else in his lifetime.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with these kids. They come down here at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm here till 7 o'clock every night, 7 days a week.
Especially today's sports.
Yes.
It's not a season, it's a year.
I'm year round. But I will spend more time with 86 boys, almost 90 kids, than any teacher on this campus, than any administrator, any dean of students.
And parent.
And parents.
Some parents.
I'll spend more time with some of these kids than parents will. And some of them don't have parents.
Yeah.
Some of them some of them don't have a father. So I might be the only example of what a godly man looks like to them. I'm not saying I am, I'm saying there's a possibility I can be. And when they see,
it's amazing.
They see humility. I love you, regardless of what you do on the football field.
Yeah.
I still love you.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, drop a ball, fumble a ball.
Because I remember, and for me, the coaches in my life, I remember Fred Moses, my very first football coach. My dad was my second football coach. I remember Jack Andre in Leesville, Brownie Parmley, James Williams was my coach. Terry Williams was my junior high coach. I remember Tom Newbert was my O-line coach for 4 years in college. I remember Kenny Farrow, who I still love to this day, was my O-line coach. And then my last O-line coach was Larry Zerline. And I learned something from all those people.
Yeah.
And then there's coaches in there, some that were in there that I didn't mention that I've learned how not to be.
Sure.
But to see these men just give everything for a job that they might get a stipend for high school, but they did it because they loved the game. They did it because they loved the players.
They love the game.
And Kenny Farrow is the one that's closest to me. And he never called us his players. Never. It was never one time, these are my players.
Yeah.
These are my boys. These are my boys.
These are my boys.
Yeah, these are my boys. And he, to this day, he'll still say, because of things that happened with us at LSU, I still can't get over how they treated my boys after I left. And it hurts him. Because
I got you.
And it hurts him because of the way things transitioned at LSU during that time period.
It happens.
I had the experience with my first high school coach job I took here in Tennessee 13 years ago.
That's right, you did do that for a little bit.
For a year and a half.
Was it just a year and a half?
A year and a half before we made the move back to Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And I tried to coach this kid. I tried to coach him. I tried to help get the best out of him. And he just didn't, whatever reason, he didn't buy in.
Yeah.
Well, he goes to the college. It was a Power 5 program. And within 2 weeks of being on campus, he sends me a text message. He goes, Coach, everything you tried to teach me
that's how it works.
was exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And then, you know.
That's parenting. That's pastoring.
Yeah.
Caring.
And that's the great thing. The greatest thing about football is it's the closest thing. It's a microcosm of our entire community.
Yeah.
I've got white kids. I've got black kids. I've got, Oriental, Asian, whatever. I've got
Hawaiians.
kids. I got no Hawaiian. I'm the only Hawaiian on campus.
No Italians?
There's probably a few.
Yeah.
But I got kids come from very wealthy, from very poor. There's white kids from very wealthy neighborhoods. There's white kids from very poor neighborhoods. There's black kids from very... I got it all. I got it all. And it's like being in a church congregation, much like the Highlands or whatever. Now, there's other churches that are a little bit more segregated. But I have it all. And I've lived my whole life in this environment. There's conversations that I can have as a football player in a locker room that would make the general public cringe. But in the locker room, it's a setting where we all know we're in this together. And we have conversations that might cut, but they don't hurt.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's just truthful.
Thank God for it.
And so to be a head coach of a bunch of guys like that, to get them to understand it's never about you. It will never, this game, you can't succeed when it's about the one.
Never.
And
in any team, any leadership role.
And how you handle the adversity dictates how you're going to, what's going to look on the backside of it, like anything else. How you handle the losses, you know,
losses.
And we all, churches take losses
We all
in personnel and finances, and it's broke spirituality.
Yeah.
And how you handle those things to overcome them is a testament to who you serve.
Yeah.
And that's what we try to teach the kids on a daily basis. And how, and being a coach is no doubt, coach, pastor, president, CEO, it doesn't matter. They're different titles in different arenas, but they're all trying to get the same thing. Cast a vision, create the culture, be example to it, lead from the front and not from the back, and be, you know, have a humble spirit, be willing to say I'm wrong, and I apologize, and, you know, and just continue to work and try to be the guy that you want everybody else to be.
Yeah.
And I had an example here. So there's a kid wanted to miss practice on a Friday to go to a camp. And I told him no. I said, you need to be here with the team. And then it turns out like 6 other guys were leaving that day to go to do other stuff. And I called the kid and his dad, and I said, I want you to apologize. I said, I made a mistake. I should have said yes to go to this camp because we got a number of other guys. And I don't want you to think, but I said, I was wrong. I made a mistake. And it won't happen again next time. And then I get feedback like, they've never heard that before. They've never heard that from a coach that I screwed up. I made a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's the lesson in itself is like leaders mess up too, and we make poor decisions.
Yeah, we do.
And, you know, once I ask for forgiveness, it's up to you to give it to me. If you don't give it to me, I can't, I'm like, you know what, that's on you now because I've asked for it. My spirit is that I'm broke. I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I've admitted that I'm wrong, and I made a bad choice. Now, whether you want to forgive me or not, that's between you and God.
Yeah.
And that's kind of trying to leave it like that
Right.
because otherwise you're running a cycle of like, you're beating yourself up. What can I do better? It's like, you know what? I did what God asked me to do. Let me get on and get going.
Yeah.
I got another game to play next week. I got another game. In 7 days, I got to play another game. Get over last week. You had 24
true.
hours. The mistakes made. The win is win.
You got to get to that next
Let's
game.
get to the next one. Let's just get to the next play.
So you about to preach that sermon called Turn a Page. And this is a fabulous weight room. I mean, the Mustangs, Lipscomb Mustang. What do you love about being here at this school, this program?
One, the support of administration is one
Wow.
thing. Which a lot of high-end schools, sometimes you don't have the administration support, but here we do. The support of the fans and the families, big time support.
Good
But how
kids.
serious- great kids, and my coaching staff.
Yeah.
I got some great friends in my coaching staff.
Was the weight room always easy for you?
I enjoy the weight room.
So you enjoyed it as a player?
Yes.
You always enjoyed the weight
liked
room.
it. I loved
So this
it.
was easy for you?
The weight room was easy. The conditioning I didn't have a problem with. As I got older, I hated watching film. I hated watching film, but I knew how to watch film, so I didn't have to spend hours upon hours of watching it.
Right.
But I loved the weight room. And then as I got older in the NFL, I had a strength coach, John Lott was my strength coach for 8 years with the New York Jets. And he always said, if you're not squatting and you're not cleaning, you ain't gonna play very long. And old school strength coach. And even that, and I mentioned that same exact saying in my Hall of Fame
You
speech.
find yourself using those statements,
100%,
all these little
because you got guys want to come do like bicep curls and all
Yeah,
that, but they don't want to do the heavy work. And it's kind of like a metaphor for life. There's a lot of people that don't want to do the heavy work to be successful.
Wow.
And,
What was
you know,
so? If this was what was hard for you? What was the hard thing you were like, man? That I really had to lean in there because a lot of people, you know, they don't know their strengths and weaknesses. You got to know your strengths and weaknesses. And I always tend to, you know, put more effort on your strengths. I mean, you can't spend all your time on your weaknesses.
Agree.
But there are some things that are hard that you have to do.
Yeah, and really the hardest thing for me as a player was my size. because even though I'm bigger to most people now, when I'm on the field, I was a smaller offensive lineman compared to some of the defense guys I played against. I had to learn how to adjust and play within myself.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. And I think, talk about like, what am I good at? What am I not good at? How, and you just said you like to adjust to your strengths, and that's what I did.
Yeah, sure.
I was great with my footwork, great with my hand placement, great with recognition, quickness, and all that. So I used that to my advantage, and I tweaked my game to where I could play to that advantage.
So you were trying to like out, okay, some guy, I'm gonna out muscle.
I could not do that.
I'm gonna outsize them.
Yeah.
So you're thinking, I'm gonna get a step.
Yep.
I'm gonna get my hand somewhere.
Yep.
I'm gonna be quicker
That's
to get
the way
an
I played.
advantage.
And, and I believe it, like, don't waste a whole lot of your time and effort trying to get better at something you're never going to be great at. Or you got to keep those little things in check. But I was like, let me be great at the things I'm really good at. Yeah. And I want to be exceptional. I want to be the example of like, hey, go watch Kevin, how he does that, because that's what he's really, really good at. And then I would work the other stuff, but I would try to be excellent at the stuff that I was good at. Yeah.
Greg Surratt always talks about there's something you're the best in the world at.
Yeah.
And he's pastor of a great church. He was president of ARC. He's still a dear friend, of course, to you, me. I mean, we know the Surratts well. But I love how he says, find what you're the best in the world at, and try to do that.
Yeah.
And normally it's going to be that strength. If somebody said Kevin was the best at this as a center, what would you say? And this is what marked me, that this.
Yeah,
technique,
I know.
Speed,
I was the best at what I did as an open field puller as a center. There's a lot of players that try to pull as a center and get in open field on the edges, and nobody could do it like I did. And that was what kind of like, that was my trademark. And then and this is something that nobody talks about, I was really, really good at the game within the game. The game itself is the 60 minutes, the 4 quarters, and like the understanding the down and distance and all that kind of stuff.
The
gamemanship that goes in the game. How do I understand
the word, the
that
gamemanship?
You need to know. I want you to know that I know more than you do about me.
So if I'm lining up as a defensive guy, right? Tell me what you automatically see.
The first thing, as soon as I sit down, I'm looking at your footwork.
Okay, so
I want to know where your foot's at. Like, so if you're a defensive lineman,
you already see something in me.
I win right now because you're leaning forward in your stance and your feet are parallel. There's no way you're ever going to get off the ball.
You already beat me.
Yeah, I've already beat you.
Just by me doing this.
Yeah. And so then if you were
what about that old school defensive lineman?
Then you would never get off the ball.
I can't even get off the ground.
It would be bam. You'd be on the ground. I'd be holding you like this, trying to figure out who else I can hit.
But I already lost the game. I lost the game.
Yeah, you've already lost the play. Because I know, like, even if it doesn't matter, like if you're in your stance and you got
all my weight was up
you put
front,
your left foot
big
back.
Man.
If you put your left foot back, I know you got 2 moves. Your first move's going this way right now because you're gonna have to step. But then what's gonna happen is you're gonna be overstep because you got to reach out and then you lose your base. Or your best step's gonna be step here. And the only way you can get across my face is gonna be 1, 2. I know on your second step.
And you got me.
I got you.
You got me.
So
you don't think right now at 59 I could be a defensive lineman? You think I'd come back?
No, you got no shot.
I got no shot. I got no shot.
But I did.
Do you think I ought to stick to pastoring and preaching? Or do you think
you're very good at that.
What about, I was a pretty decent blocking tight end. You think I could come back?
You were a whole lot better basketball player, I'm sure.
I was a whole lot better basketball player.
Yes.
Yes.
That's the game.
I was a tight end they never threw the ball to one time. I never got one throw.
Because you're a blocking tight end.
I was a blocking tight end. That's lame.
But the game within the game.
It was
and there's everything about it. It's everything about what takes place to make everything else work.
Man. He's coaching me up right now.
So
you could probably make a comeback.
No.
How many plays could you play in the NFL right now? If they said, Kevin, you're going to suit up, Titans tomorrow, how many could you go right now?
It would hurt so bad. It would hurt so bad. In my mind.
In your mind, the whole game?
In my mind, I could go the whole series. No.
In your mind, though? In your mind, you Pro Bowl?
No.
No? So could you go a series?
I could probably go series, and it would hurt so bad. And it would not be physical. I would win if I did win. It would all be win because I would win the game within the game. I would figure it out.
Who did you not like playing against the worst?
The guy most
that you just did not look forward to
is Richard Seymour. He's a 93. Played defensive end, nose tackle for the New England Patriots.
He was special.
He was a good player. He got inducted in the Hall of Fame last year.
Do you ever see him?
I do, and I told him.
Did you tell him?
Matter of fact, the first time I ever saw him, he was a rookie, made the Hall Pro Bowl his rookie year, and I told him, "You're too good of a player to act like that." And then and I think the probably the thing was he was a lot more like I was in between the lines than I cared to be.
Yeah.
And but he was a really good player. He
played a long time.
I made a mistake of treating him, trying to think I was just a rookie. I'm gonna show him how this better, and it didn't go very well. So
It didn't go very well.
I did. I told him when he got elected. I told him, "Dude, I just want to let you know I hated playing against you."
Yeah.
I said, "I hated playing against you. I hated it every time I played against you, and I played against him probably about 13 times. I couldn't stand playing against him. But he's a good player. Very
Between
good.
the lines.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Let's go.
So.
You know, Kevin, we hear so much about the young culture. We talk about, with student ministry. I've been in student ministry. You've worked with a lot of students. You're working with students now. Hear a lot about young culture. Hear a lot about kids, athletes, NIL. A lot going. We're watching college football. We all love it. We all wonder. Kids get in trouble. Things happen. What are you learning from this culture? What hope do you have? Let's keep it positive. What hope do you have about what you're seeing and what is needed and what you're giving them right now?
Yeah, I think the thing that I see is that the kids, they need affirmation in a very positive way. They need people to love them unconditionally without something else, and especially at the high level of athletics.
A lot of expectations on kids.
A lot of expectations by their family, by the school, trying to live up to last year's standards and all that kind of stuff. And my thing is just be you. Just be you. We'll love on you. Be the best you can be. But understand that at some point in time, there's a selfish part about this game that you got to know it's got to be about you. You can't be doing this for everybody else. It's too hard to do this game for everybody else. And then just do it because you love the game, and then let whatever comes out of it happen naturally. And a lot of kids, they play for the clicks. They play for
it's
the
another
likes.
world. You didn't have all that.
No,
we weren't dealing with all that.
You
The
play for the
social
clicks,
media.
they play for the recruiting, and having been a college recruiter, understanding it's worse now than when it was 5 years ago when I was doing it. And everybody wants a scholarship. I owe it to my family. I owe it to my parents. I deserve it. And that's the other thing is I deserve it. I'm entitled.
It's an entitled culture.
It's an entitled culture. And I think it's us as parents created it because we want our kids to have the best of everything. So we give them this, and and there was really an era there where we all grew up. Our kids got what they wanted, and there was no strings attached to it. And so now it's like, I get it. Why do I have to wait? Why do I have to wait to earn my spot on the team? Why do I have to wait to dress on varsity? Why can't I have it now? And I saw a great clip on a video the other day. Matt Rule from Nebraska calls out all of his staff. Whoever's played in the NFL, step out here. And he goes through every one of them. What round were you? And Trev Albert is the athletic director.
You have such a good memory.
And he goes, what round were you? First rounder. He goes, did you ever play scout team? He goes, I was redshirted and I played scout team.
Wow.
And what did that teach you? It taught me how to prepare myself to get better every day, so when my time comes, I'm going to be ready. And then other guys, what round were you drafted in? I was in the 3rd round. Did you ever play scout team? Yes. Were you redshirted? Yes. And for those that don't know, redshirting is you don't play. You just practice. You're a scout team guy your whole year. And we got kids here that don't want to be scout team guys. You're a freshman. I've got 4 receivers that have scholarship offers. What in your right mind would make you think that you're better than them?
I'm a freshman.
And I've had this
I got some followers.
I've had this conversation with kids. I asked one kid, and this happened within the last week. I said, do you think you're better than this guy? He goes, I know I'm not. I said, are you more athletic than the next guy? He goes, no. I said, are you more athletic than the 3rd guy? He goes, no. I said, then what's the problem? What's the problem? I said, we're trying to win. This isn't the league. This isn't everybody gets a chance. This is, we're trying to be excellent in what we do as a team. And your role is to be what your role is. And I think so many times people don't want to be excellent in the role that they're in now. All they can see is the role that they want.
They want to be.
And they don't want to take the other stuff.
We call it destination disease in ministry. That, hey, you've got an opportunity now to serve these kids, lead these small groups, do this outreach, preach this sermon to this group. Well, I'm gonna give it half because I'm waiting on this bigger, other, more influential
and I think,
opportunity. And Jesus said you gotta be faithful in the little.
And you get
get the more.
to get the much, and then that's the way it is. And in my mind, and it's hard for me to understand that mentality because I love practicing. If I got to play scout team as a freshman against I loved it because I knew it was a challenge for me. It was an opportunity for me to get better, to hone my skills. And lots of times now, the younger generations, they don't want to learn and sharpen their skills at this level. They want to jump into it. They want to be C-level management right now. And they don't have the skills. They don't have the experience. There's things that you, as a longtime pastor, know and see the pitfalls and been through the pitfalls.
Yes, I have.
But they have no idea what's about to hit them. And they're like, no, I got this. I got it. No, you don't. Okay, and then you got to step back. At some point, you step back, you let them fail, and you're like, okay, have you learned anything?
Maybe you can learn. You know, you've been around some incredible athletes that have done well, and you've got people in mind that never made it. That amazing athletes.
Yes.
Super talented.
100%.
Could be in the hall.
Yep.
But then they did not. And so the other day I was in an interview, and they said, "What have you seen?" Because of guys that have not had longevity, guys that have made tragic, bad decisions. I said, what have you learned? I said, one of the things that I have learned from people that get themselves in a bad place is, I told them, I said, and they said, you got to give me one answer. I said, they don't listen. They do not listen.
And it's the same.
They do not listen.
It's the same thing
as sports,
football.
Life,
it doesn't.
Ministry, raising kids. Great talent, great raw material, but don't listen.
And what invariably happens over time is as they get older, they're like, I should have listened to you.
Should have listened.
And I was like, and it's never a moment to say, I told you so.
Never.
Never. It's like,
not
you know what? It's like, my job was to teach you how to mentor you and stuff like that. Even for me as an older player, I could have looked down on it like a guy, the drafted guy, to take my spot. And I could be like, I'm never going to teach you how to be a football player. You figure it out on your own. I'm going to take care of me. But if it's not about you and it's about the culture and it's about your business, your ministry, your school, about the team, then my job as the leader, who is then that leadership spot, is to teach you how to be everything that you need to be. So if I can't do it, you can carry the torch.
Right.
And there's too many in our whole culture. People aren't willing to do that because they're trying to protect their little territory. But for me, it's like, you know what? I want to teach you because it's about sending you out. Jesus taught his disciples, and he sent them out to go teach the world. And I could sit there and say, well, I don't want to teach you everything because I don't want you to get more publicity than me.
No, man.
And Jesus was never like that.
No.
He said, I'm going to teach you so you can go. I'm going to send you out. It's by multiplication. And it's the same thing for me. Like, my job is to teach you to take my job. You're never going to take it. But when my time's off, if I can't play, you have to be good enough to hold the standard that everybody else is used to. And it's my job to teach you to do that.
And you got kids. I know when you were coaching at the college level, you were doing some personal coaching. You got some guys in the league right now crushing it.
There's several guys that I've trained, and they're doing really, really well.
How does that make you feel?
I'm happy for them.
Exactly.
I'm happy for them. I had a little bit of something that they carried with them. And I've had guys come back and say, I should have been training with you from way before. Or I wish I would have spent more time with you, or whatever. Or thank you. The greatest ones are when they say thanks. Hey, man, I learned so much from you.
So let's wrap. We're going to wrap. Tell me some of the quarterbacks you snapped to.
Jeez.
Name some.
All right. Vinny Testaverde.
Vinny.
Warren Moon. Rick Meyer. John Freeze. Dan McGuire. Chad Pennington. Ray Lucas. Vince Young. Kerry Collins.
What about Pro
Billy
Bowl?
Volek. Peyton Manning.
What?
Tom Brady.
What? In the Pro Bowl?
Drew Bledsoe.
All of them.
Mark Brunell.
You snapped to some guys, the greatest.
I've said some of them.
But you haven't snapped to the host of Unscripted.
I have.
On the football on stage. Let's get a snap in real quick before we leave. Don't break my hand.
Are we doing? I gotta ask.
Do not break my hand.
Are we doing underneath or are we doing shotgun snap?
We're doing underneath. I'm gonna get it. We're that tight.
Okay, we are.
We're that close, man.
But I'm going to put your hands where I want them.
Oh, you got to put my hands where you want them. But do not break my hand.
If they're not in the right spot, it's going to hurt me very, very much.
Okay, so we're going to do this, y'all. Never been done before on Unscripted.
All right, let me see. You got to give me a hand.
Okay,
give me a hand. Give me that hand.
Here.
It's going to be right there. You go.
Oh, my gosh.
You go open that one up like
Kevin are
that.
close right now.
We are way
I
closer.
got it, man. Look at this.
All right. It's going to be on me or on you?
What's on?
You just going to say hut.
Say hut. Oh, son.
That could have went very wrong for both of us.
It went great.
Yeah, because I put you where I wanted.
It went great.
You were coachable.
I was coachable and teachable. Unscripted. I took a snap from a Hall of Famer, like Breeze, like Brady, and like Manning. I'm like those guys right now. I love you, Kevin Mawae.
Love you too, bro. Appreciate you.
Hey, what an amazing episode of Unscripted. We loved kicking off season 3 with none other than longtime friend, Coach Kevin Mawae. We're really excited about all the episodes ahead. So stay connected on our Instagram through @Dino Rizzo or @ArcChurches on social media. Also, if you're interested in learning more about planning a church or partnering with Arc in any way, visit our website at arcchurches.com. That's arcchurches.com. We would love to get together with you and connect. So thanks again for tuning in, and we will catch you on the next episode of Unscripted.